I got to US, I always knew that I cared. I wasn't sure which angle I was going to go, but I love nursing more than medicine. I want to be able to have my own clinic. I want to be able to practice mental health.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you so much for joining. We appreciate it. We understand that some of you might be at work right now, and while others are just getting back home. So if you're watching this by way of replay, please do, as you watch, replay, share it, tweet it, because I really do believe that we're going to get a lot out of this. Tammy, thank you for watching. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for watching. For those of you who are new to my platform, my name is Dr. Princess Fumi Hancock. People call me the Princess of Suburbia because my parents and family have ruled in the southwestern region since the 1280s, right? And of course, I'm a best-selling author, written 24 books, 16 of which have become #1 best-selling author, best-selling books on Amazon. I always regard myself as your compassionate trauma care maestro, right? Because I like to orchestrate what we all know as mental health. So today we're going to be talking about mental health. This is going to be a mental health talk. And I have to tell you this. Sitting with me right now is my wonderful, wonderful nephew. His name is, yeah, guess it, Prince Abdul-Ramman Shitu. Of course, I call him Damilola. All right, so there you go. I call him Damilola. There you go. And so last night, he reached out to me. This is why we're doing what we're doing today, because prior to today, anyway, I already had plans. We were going to come on in a few weeks to start talking about mental health. And by the way, this what we're taping right now will also be on iHeartRadio shortly. For those who love podcasts, we're going to slice this and put this on iHeartRadio and other avenues that my podcast is being heard, like iTunes and everything like that. So he came to me last night and he asked me a pivotal question. And that question really got to me because I felt like, wow. The question was very heavy on my heart, that I felt like, well, you know what? I could not wait another day, but I wanted him to come here so that we can discuss it, because I felt like if you guys were watching us discussing it amongst ourselves, it's actually better than me just answering the questions that he asked. And so I felt like if you were to come here, for those of you who watch my show, I like to be very authentic with my show, right? I love doing things that is not necessarily planned out, things that comes from the heart, so that you guys can get to hear people's heart, you can get to see and feel it. And so today we're going to talk about suicide prevention. We're going to talk about mental health and suicide prevention. Not only that, some of the things that we're going to talk about today, we're going to kind of have a discussion about what does it mean to have suicidal thoughts? What does it mean to have suicide ideation? Um, we're not going to talk from the book perspective, but we're going to talk about from the perspective of our lives, him tearing his own veil. As you guys know, I love to tear my veil. Don't tear my veil over so many times that I don't even know. So for you who are going to probably be listening and watching, right? You'll probably maybe your first time of hearing me tear my veil, but it's all good. You know, I'm at an age now that it really doesn't matter to me. I just want people's lives to be changed. I want people's life to be touched. I want people's life to be impacted by my story. And I know that my nephew, this is what he wants to. He wants his own story to impact other people's lives. And so because of that, today we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about what is the definition of suicidal thought? What does it mean? What does it look like to have suicidal thought? What does it look like to have suicide ideation? I'm going to talk a little bit, I'm going to share a little bit about statistics of the number of people that do go through suicidal thoughts, right, in America and abroad. So for those of you who are in Africa watching this, you know, you're not excluded in this either. We're going to talk about not just suicidal thoughts, we're going to talk about other diagnoses that come with it, like schizophrenic, you know, schizophrenia, like schizoaffective disorder, things that come with it, bipolar type, all the kind of diagnoses that come with suicidal thought. We're going to talk about the risk factors, right? We're going to talk about the risk factors of that. How does it look like? You know, how does it look like? So for you who have children out there, you know, with all this COVID-19 going on, who have children out there and don't even know that perhaps your children are going through something, I think by the time you sit down and listen and watch this will give you something to actually go back to talk to your kids about. Because frankly, many of us, our kids have been neglected, have been left to watch TV, left to do all kind of stuff, and they're going through things and we don't even know. And so it is important that this discussion is going to be a platform where you can take to your own homes and begin to have discussions with your family. We're going to talk about causes. We're going to talk about conditions that are linked to suicide ideation. And then we're going to wrap it up by talking about prevention, treatment, right? How do you reduce the risk in your home? How does it look like in your home? We're going to talk about that, right? We're going to talk about what is the best way. What is the best way to manage this? Because frankly, there are other things that come along with it, like depression, anxiety. How do you manage those? We're going to talk about that. What has helped both of us in coping with all of this? We're going to talk about that. All right. And hopefully our life story will give you advice. You can take some advice from our life story. Our journey, our healing journey, our life story is our legacy to the world. My story as a mental health, doctor of nurse practice, psychiatric provider in Arizona, my story, my life story, my experience, Ramman's experience. Our goal today, the ultimate goal that we have today, is that our life stories will touch you enough that you will go home and begin the conversation in your own homes. That you will begin the conversation not just with your kids, you will begin the conversation with your nephews, with your nieces. Not only that, you will begin the conversation, perhaps you yourself watching us is going through some blues and you don't have a name for it. And by the time we're done today, you would say, aha, maybe I need some psychiatric evaluation. Maybe I need somebody to evaluate me and see if this is something that, you know, I need help with. Yeah. So this is our goal today. that we would help you to take you out of darkness, hashtag out of darkness, right? That's an hashtag for the association. The association, that's the hashtag for the association for suicide prevention, right? And that together, right, we can fight suicide. Together, we can fight suicide. Hashtag out of darkness. So when you see this and you watch this, can you hashtag that for us and do hashtag out of darkness, hashtag together to fight suicide. So having said that, again, my name is Dr. Princess Fumi Hancock. I'm a psychiatric mental health doctor of nurse practice, practicing out here in Arizona. Do you know this? Do you know this? Do you know that suicide was the 10th leading cause of death in the United States of America? Do you know that? Do you know that today? Do you know that on average, 132 Americans died by suicide each day, making 1.4 million Americans attempting suicide? Do you know that? Do you know that 90% of those who died by suicide had a diagnosable mental health condition at the time of their death? Do you know that? Do you know that? That 48,344 Americans die by suicide yearly. Second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 34, ladies and gentlemen, 10 to 34, second leading causes of death. It is the fourth leading causes of death between ages 35 and 54. Everybody. So when you say that this might not be in your home, I'll say look again. I'll say look again, because perhaps it's probably in your bathroom and you don't even know that yet. All right. In 2017, the suicide rate was 1.5 times higher for veterans, our veterans in this country. Higher. Over 950,000 years of potential life, ladies and gentlemen, were lost to suicide before age 65. Let me say that again. Over 950,000 years of potential life were lost before ages 65. Firearms accounted for slightly more than half of it. Now, let me tell you this. Less than 4 weeks ago, I had a patient that blew her brains out because of mental illness, because she was tired, because she was fed up, and she had nobody to talk to. The same few months ago, I knew of a 24-year-old that overdosed. You hear me? Overdosed. In Arizona alone, where I reside. One person dies every 6 hours due to suicide. Take that. One person died every 6 hours in my state, Arizona, due to suicide. It's the second leading cause of death amongst ages 10 to 34. You're not hearing me. You're not hearing me. The second leading cause of death amongst ages 10 to 34. 10, just in case you didn't hear that, 10. Is the third leading cause of death between 35 and 44. The fifth leading cause of death between 45 and 64. The eighth leading cause of death between ages 55 and 64. The 13th leading cause of death between for ages 65 and above. We are talking about suicide prevention today. And so again with me is Prince Abdul-Ramman Shitu, my good-looking, wonderful, honey plum nephew that I'm so proud of, just incredibly proud that he's using this platform to tell his truth. There are times that many times we're so afraid because of the stigma that we experience with mental illness that we don't want to say nothing to anybody. We want to keep it to ourselves. We don't want to share it because we're afraid of how people think about us. But here is the thing though. It doesn't really matter what people say. It doesn't matter how people think. Hey, Shanisa, welcome. It's all about helping somebody. Because frankly, as you help somebody else, you get help too. You get strength. So I know that my nephew today is getting strength from this today.
Yes.
And I know that when he gets off of this, he's going to feel so good and so proud that he got up, regardless of what anybody might think, regardless of what anybody might say, he's getting up and he's letting his truth count. So I'm going to give him time. I want you to take your time and tell your story. I want us to make this a conversation between you and I so that those who are watching can learn from it. We come from Africa where people close their eyes and pretend, see no evil, hear no evil. If you hear it, you did not really hear it. If you saw it, what you saw was not true. Just pretend, 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 pretend. Because that's the culture. That's the culture. And a whole lot of other cultures are like that too in America, where you don't tell, you don't say it, you don't feel it, where if you're in church, you can't even say it in church now because you saying it in church means that you don't believe.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
That's right. So here you are in church now, getting your groove on, clapping, telling the demons to get out, and yet you're still hearing those demons. Yes, you're still hearing those voices. Yes, everything is still the same. Then you leave church, you get home and you say, wait a minute now. I'm still feeling this thing, but now I can't call the pastor now because I know what the pastor will say to me is, you don't have faith enough. Go back and get you some faith.
Yes.
And so now people are committing suicide. People are attempting suicide. People are completing suicide in the middle of the church because the church don't want to understand that there are some things, yes, we will pray over it, but yes, we would also use science.
Yes.
So talk to me about, just introduce yourself again. Prince Abdul-Ramman Shitu, introduce yourself and just share your story with the world.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Abdul-Ramman Shitu, and I come from Staten Island, New York. I was raised by my mother, and she's a wonderful person. I credit her to keeping me here for this long. So my story begins when I was 10 years old. I am a survivor of sexual assault. I was sexually assaulted by a family friend. And for years, this, the assault had tormented me, like mentally. I couldn't focus on anything. I had sexual confusion. I was very disturbed for years. And that led to my first suicide contemplation. And thankfully, my mom may not know it, but she intervened that day. And she asked me what I was doing. and I told her, oh, I just have a headache or something. And she caught on, and the following 2 months or so, I went to a crusade and gave my life to Christ at 14 years old. But that didn't mean that the suicidal thoughts went away, because they still plagued me, and I hadn't attempted until I was in my 20s. So when I was in my 20s, in college, I dealt with a lot of depression and bulimia nervosa. I had a lot of trouble going through school, and there were points where I was kicked out of school many times because of behavioral issues and because of, academic performance was poor. So when I began commuting from home to college, because my mom was very concerned for my mental health, I remember before that, I was on the dorms, and that was when most of my suicide attempts happened. There's one where I walked out of the dorm room and I was looking for the highway. And unknown to me, my friend had followed me because she was concerned. And I was looking for the highway, and she was going to call security. And I told her, no, I'm not thinking of suicide. But in my mind, I had planned to jump in front of a car. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you, God.
So
God. God.
a lot of things happened my freshman year and sophomore year of college that led me to do all those suicide attempts. And I felt like I had no one to talk to. I felt like nobody was there. And even if there were people there, I felt like I was a burden onto them. I felt like I was a burden. And because I like to deal with things on my own, I don't like to tell people what I'm going through. I like to think I can fix it. I don't need anybody. That's kind of my mentality. And I still struggle with that mentality. And it's kind of a prideful thing because you don't like to admit that you have a problem, And it got me in a lot of trouble many times. So there's one that happened on September 6th, 2017 or 2016. It'll be 3 years in September. That one of my most serious suicide attempts happened. I went home for a break. I forget which break it was, probably fall or something. Or I was just going home for the weekend. And I was dealing with a lot of depression during that time, heavy depression. I was cutting myself daily. And at one point, I just had enough. I forget what triggered it. That day was it's kind of a blur to me, but I forget what triggered it. And I said, you know what, I'm done. And I started looking for pills, anything. Not going to say which pills. I don't want to give anybody ideas, but I found pills in the medicine cabinet. And I texted one of my friends and I asked him, what am I doing? And he told me, he said, I don't know, what are you doing? And he was kind of shocked. I didn't respond. And he kind of had this attitude of, you know what to do about it, pray or something.
Mm.
And I just went downstairs, took the bottles of pills with me, and I took the amount I felt that would kill me. And I had researched it prior to that point. And I made peace with God. I said, I'm sorry, Lord, forgive me. And after I took the pills, I fell asleep. And then, by the grace of God, I woke up. And a lot of people may not understand what it's like to wake up after a suicide attempt, or to survive a suicide attempt, or to back out at the last minute. A lot of people don't know what it's like to be in that place. And when I woke up, I was so frustrated. I was so angry. You know, I thought to myself, I can't even do that right. I was angry at God. You know, and I just went upstairs. And I acted like everything was fine. You know, my brother was in another room, and my mother had just come home, and I was preparing to go cut my hair. It was a weekend. I forget which day, maybe Saturday or Sunday, because I was going to school the following day. So I cut my hair, everything was fine. And then I went to school the next day, and I went over to my friend's house, the one I had texted, and I talked about what happened. And then he was like, well, now you learned your lesson.
Wow.
And I felt like that was kind of dismissive, or he didn't really understand. I should mention I should have received medical attention because I was in a lot of pain physically. Where my kidneys would be, that's where I was hurting, and then my sides were hurting. And then I posted on Facebook, because I had a Facebook at the time. I posted in a prayer group that I had attempted suicide and I needed prayer. And the dean of the school found out, and he called me into his office and gave me a whole bunch of questions and was saying I was attention seeking.
Oh my God.
Yes. And that's what really bugs me. When somebody tells you they're suicidal or they've attempted suicide, the last thing you should say is that they're attention seeking. Because while I didn't want to be stopped, I also wanted some sort of after support. some care if I had survived. And I didn't plan on surviving. You know, I don't want people to think that my suicide attempts, multiple suicide attempts, were me crying out for help, because there are times where I didn't text anybody. And I don't want people to think that my attempts were me just saying, look at me, I'm sick, I'm suffering. Like I always am one to deny my pain until the very last minute. And then that's when it's too late. So after the questioning and the insults, I was taken to the nurse, and she had suggested I go to the hospital to find out the condition of my body after what had happened. And even she said I was attention seeking, and that I wanted people to worry for me or things like that. And I think that this is a common belief in maybe Christendom, because they're not educated enough on mental health. I was surprised that even a nurse, a school nurse, could think that I was attention seeking. So I refused to go to the hospital, and I told them not to call my mom because I didn't want her to find out that I had attempted suicide. Because I didn't want a repeat of what happened in the 3rd grade when I was sent to the psychiatric hospital. Even though they didn't admit me, I could have been admitted because I had threatened suicide after being bullied. So these suicidal thoughts have been with me since I was a child. But I digress. I went home following weekend. I had a doctor's appointment, and I discovered that I had damaged my livers and my kidneys. And my doctor was shocked, and I didn't tell her why the liver and the kidneys were bad, because I didn't want to go to a psychiatric hospital, because insurance and money, and I didn't want my mom to be mad or anything. So I was never treated for my suicide attempt, never been to a hospital, inpatient, and I'm grateful for that, because inpatient, it's a revolving door. They don't really help the patients that go through the system, and they end up coming back. So I'm very grateful that I never was inpatient. And fast forward to today, I was a crisis counselor for a long time with Crisis Text Line. And I was so thrilled and blessed to be able to, talk people down from suicide and doing things to harm themselves. And I feel like my story, that I survived for a reason, and that my story is not in vain.
Wow. I tell you what though, Rahman, there are some things that that you talked about today that I didn't even know was going on with you. And I just, God help me, Jesus. I sometimes, I always knew that somehow I would feel a tug towards you. And I will ask your mom, how is Rahman doing, by the way? Oh, he's fine. He's fine. And I will always feel that tug. How's Rahman doing, by the way? Oh, he's fine. He's fine. But this is what we talk about here when we say tear the veil. Because majority of what you're sharing today, this is my first time of hearing it. And I'm doing my very best to comport myself right now and compose myself as a host. But after a minute, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to compose myself, frankly. This is what happens when you have secrets in homes, because our children are not able to tell it like it is, because we have churches that we're not able to go in and say, hey, I know you prayed for me last night, but I'm still feeling it today. We have places that people cannot go to because they don't look like the way we want them to look. Their names feel odd to us, right? They don't look or feel or, talk the way we want them to talk. And we forget that they need help. We forget that they need help. So I want you to walk us through this, because this is your show now. We have flipped the script right now, ladies and gentlemen. This is Raman's show. This is Raman's show right now. This is Raman's show. And what I want you to do for me, and I want you to do for all of us here, I think something's wrong with your, okay, yeah. I want you to walk us through, because we don't, oh God, help me, Lord God Almighty. We're not going to look in the books for this. We're going to look at each other and talk about it. Last night, this is what brought this on today. If you permit me to share, Raman, do you permit me to share?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So he sent me a note last night and say, hey, Big Mommy, I have a question for you. I said, okay, what's the question? He said, well, I was listening and watching some of your stories before, and I know that you shared a story about how, you found yourself on Verrazano Bridge and you tried to plunge down the bridge. I said, oh, yeah, sure, I did. He said, okay. I said, what's going on? He said, well, it's my anniversary of the last one that I did in September, and I'm feeling kind of excited, kind of way about it. And how did you walk through yours? How did you, overcome yours? Or, how did you walk through yours? And when he said that, my mind was, okay, we had plans to do shows together, but perhaps this is the one that we would use to start the show together. And I said, you know what? I want this to be as raw as possible. I want it to be as real as possible. So we're going to discuss this on air. And so to hear let me say this. I know he's been through a lot. I just didn't know how much he's been through until now. When I see my baby, I know he's been through a lot. The last time I spoke with him, we were talking about self-esteem, which we will do a whole show on that, on self-esteem. Mental health, mental illness, it robs you of your self-esteem, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know that. It robs your children of their self-esteem, because they're looking at other people that they think is sorry more than they are. And they're feeling like, how come they've been left behind? And so for me, having Abdul-Ramman on here is a privilege for me. Not about him. It's my own privilege. My own privilege to have him share his story, tear his veil. Now I know there's a book lock up inside you that we're going to write and we're going to publish.
Yes.
Because there are people in your own age that needs to read what you write. They need to hear from not all foggies like us, but people their own age that can really tell them the big deal. What got to me mostly is what you were talking about when you're telling people that you're going through things and they're telling you that you're seeking attention. Who wants to seek attention in that kind of way?
Yeah.
Who wants to seek attention in that kind of way? So if you are a mother watching us today, if you are a father watching us today, and you've told your child that told you or tried to tell you that they're going through something and you say, oh, come on, you're seeking attention, you better go back and reconcile. You better go back and reconcile. Because what you've done is literally put that child on the path of yet another suicide. And this time, they might attempt it and they might complete it. Because where do people go if they can't go find anywhere else to go? If there's no auntie in their family that they can go to, if there's no mother in their family that they can go to, if there's no father that they can go to that we understand, then tell me, where do they go to? If they can't go to their church, who tells them, put a praise on and pretend it doesn't happen,
Exactly.
right? Put a praise on. You're not praising God enough. You don't believe God enough. Do you know that a lot of pastors have died, literally, because they can't tell the truth? There are many pastors right now that have killed themselves on drug overdose, that have died in different kind of ways, prostituting, doing all kind of stuff behind the parishioners because they have parishioners that they can't tell the truth to. Because what they're going to hear is, put your praise on. You're not praising God enough. No, get you. In fact, I have the exact music that you need to put on while you're praising God.
Exactly.
And when you put that music on, if you're not feeling it, then it's your fault. Then it's your fault because you need to get on your knees now.
Yes.
You need to fast, you need to do all kind of stuff, all kind of somersaulting because it's your fault.
Wow.
It's your fault. So, Abdul-Ramman, talk to us about symptoms. I want you to walk us through what are the kinds of symptoms that people should be looking out for? Because, look, I had all these sheets. I'm not doing sheets no more because your story is more than enough. I don't need no sheets. I just need you to look at where you were and walk us through what are the kinds of signs and symptoms people should be looking out for. Because, look, there are people with this COVID that are not handling this COVID well. They're not handling it at all. Several months ago, an 11-year-old guy, young boy, went inside his closet and hung himself. Several months ago. People are not handling, and I don't care what anybody say. You know, there are people who will listen to what I have to say now and say, okay, you know, she don't go poster now. She don't go political now. This is not a political thing. This is an humanity. Humanity is at stake here, ladies and gentlemen. People are not dealing with this COVID well. They're not dealing with this, you know, racial injustice well. They're not dealing, period.
Yes.
So talk to us. What are the signs and symptoms that people should be looking out for? If they have kids, if they have nephews, nieces, people, you know, mothers, fathers, what are the signs?
So there are multitude of signs that could that one could look for, depending on the diagnosis exactly. For example, with depression, it really robs you of your ability to take care of yourself. So for 4 months at a time, I would not bathe or take it or brush my teeth. And there were points where my mom had to come and bathe me because I couldn't do it myself. I was completely out of my mind, if you will. And other symptoms of depression are like lack of motivation. Like I had no desire to do school or finish school or anything like that. There, like, self-harm might be a thing. Not for everybody, but for me, it was definitely a thing in my life. I self-harmed. And I think another one is anxiety, just terror, like absolute terror, like panic. Like I remember waking up every single day with just overwhelming fear, and fear of absolute, there was no trigger to the fear. I was just absolutely afraid. And depression and anxiety can go hand in hand. They feed off each other. And, you can become so anxious that you become catatonic, basically. And you can't leave your house, can't do anything. And that, in turn, because of the isolation, makes you more susceptible to suicide and things like that, because you're just so depressed. Not leaving my bed, I would skip classes because I didn't want to go to bed. I didn't want to, leave bed, and I had insomnia issues. And I also have, schizoaffective disorder. So schizoaffective disorder.
Okay, I want you to talk about that. I want you to talk because, I've diagnosed people with schizoaffective before. In fact, I had somebody today who wanted me to explain it to them. That what does it mean? Because when you say schizoaffective, you have schizophrenia and you have schizoaffective, right? So
Yes.
What does it mean to have the diagnosis of schizoaffective?
So schizoaffective disorder is a combination of a major mood disorder, such as major depression or bipolar, and schizophrenia. So it's combined. So there are two sets of symptoms with schizophrenia. There are positive symptoms and there are negative symptoms. Positive doesn't necessarily mean that they're good for you or anything. It means
exactly. Yeah, say that again. Say that again, because when people hear positive, it's like, oh, gee, that's positive. No. Can you?
Exactly.
Yeah. You say that again and repeat that and explain that, please.
So positive symptoms doesn't necessarily mean that they're good for you or that they're good to have. It's essentially what it is it's adding to an experience that you already have. So maybe you didn't have hallucinations before, and all of a sudden, when you develop schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, you end up seeing things, hearing things, and you have delusions. And the negative symptoms, for instance, can include alogia or poverty of speech, where you can't really talk much, and low motivation, avolition, anhedonia. All those things, they take away from your experience. Like you can't smile as much, you can't express yourself facially, and you have a monotone voice sometimes. And for me, I've experienced delusions where that I could talk to people with my mind, um, and I would hear their response in my mind. And I had a delusion that my friend was a Russian spy. And I had delusions where I would pass this one traffic light, and each time I pass it, I would always be stopped by the traffic light. And I had this idea that this car parked near the traffic light was the one controlling it and manipulating the traffic light so I wouldn't go through. While others could go through, I wouldn't be able to go through. So I was always mad at the person, even though there was nobody in the car. I had this idea that somebody was in the car controlling the traffic lights. And as far as hallucinations go, I see faces and things that are not supposed to have faces. And I really never heard voices as much. It progressively, over the years, it has become more apparent that I'm hearing voices. So there are times where I would hear my name whispered, or somebody would say hello to me, and it was as if, it was as if it was like I could hear it on the outside. And then I have voices on the inside, but I didn't understand them to be voices. I always thought it was just this, I honestly thought it was the Holy Spirit commanding me to pick up certain things. If you believe in the Holy Spirit, then you know that, sure, he wants a relationship with you, but he's not going to tell you to pick up certain things and do certain things. Then I'd also have voices that tell me to kill myself, and they would be distinct voices. And then there was a time where I would hear mumbling in my head, loud enough that I could hear it. And they wouldn't be making sense. So those are some of my experiences with the symptoms of schizoaffective disorder.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit. I want us to dive a little bit more on the symptoms that you shared. Everybody, thank you so much for joining. I have Prince Abdul-Ramman Shitu. That's my baby. That's at least one of my babies. All right. So he's here sharing his truth and sharing his stories and talking to us about his experience with mental illness. And I tell you, if you have not watched this, if you're just joining us now, trust me, you're going to want to go back and replay what he's talked about. If you're just joining now, trust me, you're going to want to go back and replay what he said. Now, one of the other symptoms that I know of is feeling or appearing to feel trapped or hopeless. Can you share a little bit about that feeling of hopelessness, feeling of self-worthlessness, that dark shadow? Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, there are moments quite often where I have no vision. I have no sense of the future. They say depression is a cloud, but I feel like depression is void, void of future, void of hope. And that's what really brings people to the edge, not seeing a future for themselves. Like for the longest time, even now, like my birthday had just passed, August 10th. And I each year I can't see myself living that long. I always saw myself, living a short life. Like I never saw
Wow.
in the future. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Oh my God. Is it something that you would think about, or what? Talk to me about that.
Like, I guess it's like, you know, so for instance, my mom would tell me, I'm gonna get married, have kids, and sure, I would like that. But when I close my eyes, I don't envision that for myself. I see myself dead for a number of
Wow.
reasons.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Oh my God. You are just opening. Oh, whew.
Yeah.
This is more than I was expecting today, y'all. This is more than what I was expecting. I tell you what though, when Michael Jackson was alive,
Yeah.
and I would look at him, and I never saw him to be 60.
Mm.
For some reason, I would just look at him, and I never envisioned him to be 60 years old, because I just never saw it. I always saw this cloud. So are we good at faking it? Are we good at faking it that people would not even know that we're at that point? Are we good at faking it? Talk to me, Ramon, about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that there, you know, like I said, I like to put on a show. Like I don't like to let people in. I don't like to tell people that I'm struggling. Um, so, and I'm a good actor. So like you know, I may not necessarily smile, but I give them reassuring answers that let them know that I'm okay and that they shouldn't worry about me. Um, I mean, there are times where I'm a I'm sadly a good liar. Like I've lied to my mother. I've done terrible things because I just don't want people to know my struggle, you know. I like to keep it all in, and people only see something wrong when it comes up in a lab report, or they get somebody else to report me.
So I want you to, because there are new people coming on right now. There are new people that are watching you and they're coming up right now. And I want you to give us just a quick snapshot of what you've shared in about your life story, because I want them to be able to go back and watch the replay. But I don't necessarily want you to repeat the whole thing, but I want you to give like a snapshot of what you've shared so far, and then we move forward.
Okay, so some of the highlights briefly are, that I was sexually assaulted at 10 years old. I attempted suicide on a number of occasions, and the most recent one was September. Well, not the most recent, but the one that's the most traumatic for me was September 6th, 2016 or 17. It'll be 3 years in September that I decided to end my life that day. And I'm here sharing my story.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So, gosh. What are the causes? What do you think are the causes of this? What do you, from your experience, what do you think are the causes of schizoaffective disorder, anxiety, depression? What do you think? Talk to me about that.
So I feel like there are a number of factors that could play into someone developing a mental illness such as schizoaffective disorder or depression or even an eating disorder. And I feel like for me, it was, sure, I have a family history, but I didn't really think anything of it. I didn't really take anything seriously because I thought, well, that's just them. They're living their lives, and you know. And another thing was the environment that you're growing up in. I unfortunately was uh, not able to have my father in my life for very long periods of time. There were periods where he was absent, where we didn't talk to each other for a long time, and that really affected me, my emotional and mental health, because I see, my friends with their fathers, or whatever the case may be, and I see videos, and then Father's Day commercials. They just really get to me because I never had that relationship with my father, and I desire it sometimes. Um, Another thing is unforgiveness. Unforgiveness can really play a big part in developing a mental illness because, if you are familiar with scripture, it says that the Lord God will give you over to your tormentors if you do not forgive. And I feel like years of unforgiveness have played a role in me developing a mental illness. Um, and then just maybe the lack of, I wouldn't say supervision, but I guess it's just very accessible. Like there are things that it's just so easy to do it, and I wish it wasn't so easy to do things like that.
So talk to us about sleep deprivation. What role does that play in your wellness, in making sure that you're okay? Because a lot of the things that I see in my practice, people come and they have not slept in 10 days straight. They have not, so what role does that? Because I need to learn that too, because I have that issue myself. I hardly sleep. So I need to learn that. What role does sleep deprivation play in all of this?
So when we sleep, our body regenerates itself, and I feel like when we don't sleep, when we don't sleep, whether it's because of mania or depression, um, it really it causes things to happen in the brain, um, and I'm not entirely sure what happens, but it's obviously not good to not sleep, because the brain starts shutting down. You can become more anxious if you don't sleep, and you can begin to see things. All sorts of things can happen because your body has not regenerated itself.
So what role does alcohol and drugs play in this?
Wow. It's kind of funny that you would mention that because I have unfortunately dealt with alcohol myself, and I have taken painkillers, um, non-prescription painkillers, and alcohol is a depressant. So when you drink alcohol, you become numb. For me, I was numb, and that's what made me feel hooked to it because I wouldn't feel anything. But after a while, the more you drink, uh, the more anxious you become. And when you drink, you're able to do more things. Like you're able to hurt yourself more aggressively. There have been times where I drank and I self-harmed, in particular cutting myself, and the cuts on my arm are still healing today. because they were that bad from that night of drinking.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no,
They,
I'm sorry.
ooh, no, you don't be sorry, because I'm telling you, it's taking everything in me to get up here. I wish I could do like that virtual hug right now. I wish I
Yeah.
could go straight into this and grab you and just hold you to my heart like this and not let you go. Because what you are sharing today are things that I I'm sure even your mom watching right now, she probably maybe half the time, I don't even know how she is right now. I have to call her after this to make sure she's okay.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this is just information that
And I feel like if we do share these points, or if we share when we're at our darkest points in our lives, it can break families, because maybe the family doesn't know how to deal with it. Like, even I remember going to my my Sunday school teacher at the time of a church I go to now, and I was talking to him about my struggles, and he boldly pronounced that God's judgment was on me.
whoa,
Yes, ma'am.
whoa.
Yes.
Did you say you are still at that church?
Yeah, I'm unfortunately at that church, but I do not associate with him that much.
Oh, no, no, no. You got to repeat that again. Was he reported to somebody?
No, he was not reported.
Don't make me do a kung fu fighty here.
but
He
when
said God's judgment was on you.
yes, he did.
How old was this FOOL fool?
He's like in his 30s, like 35, maybe early 40s.
I better watch him. He probably on drug or something.
you know,
He probably in hiding himself. Oh my God.
so from that point on, I couldn't tell him about my struggles. So whenever he asked me how I am, I say, I'm great, praise the Lord. I use all these Christian terms to try and hide what I'm going through, because he has told me in the past that God's judgment was on me, and that taught me that I can't go to him with my struggles anymore.
Oh my God. The things that we do, the things that people do to themselves, and the things that we do to each other, that is in a church, that somebody will open their mouth and tell somebody that because you have a mental illness, God's judgment is on you. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Did you tell your mom about this?
I don't recall.
So I see your mom says this. Your mom says that your father actually struggled with alcohol for years. Did you know that?
Yeah. Yes,
You,
ma'am. She told me about that.
okay. So the more reason why you have to be careful, because you're right up there. So you have to be very careful with something like that. My goodness.
Mm.
Woo! So I've often seen people get in trouble with the law when they're dealing with mental, illness, right? They go out,
Yeah.
they drink too much and drive, and boom, before you know it, DUI. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So, um, you know, when you're struggling really badly with mental illness, you may not have a care in the world for your life. So you begin to do risky behaviors. Like, there were times where I drove with my eyes closed at
Are you
nighttime.
serious?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my word.
And when I drove with my eyes closed, one of my suicide attempts, I drove with my eyes closed and drove 95 miles per hour on a 25-mile road. And if something had happened, I would have been in prison. If something else would have happened, if I had hit somebody, I would be in jail right now.
Oh my
And
God.
you don't think about the things that, you don't think about consequences, because in your mind, you're going to be dead soon. And you don't,
Wow.
and you don't think that, you don't think that your life, you don't think that your life is connected to somebody else. So you can drink, and you can then go and drive, and you think you're going to be fine, and you don't really care about, you don't care about your life anyway, and you don't, and you crash, and you take somebody else with you. That's a heavy burden to carry.
You said something about eating disorder. I heard you say it, but you didn't sit on it for too long.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this part of the symptoms too, like anorexia nervosa? Is it part of? Does it come with the package?
So not everybody develops an eating disorder, but eating disorders are common in those who have experienced sexual assault. For me, it was because I didn't want to look attractive. I wanted to be thin. And it wasn't really about my weight per se. It was a way to have some sort of control in my life in the midst of the chaos, and to be numb because I didn't want to feel anything. So for me, I dealt with bulimia nervosa, and I had episodes where I didn't eat for 3 or 4 days, and I lost a lot of weight. And people in my family were, naturally shocked or happy that I was losing weight, because I had struggled with, being overweight my entire life, since 10 years old, really. Um, and I had been 300 plus pounds, and that's what worried my mom, that whenever I, you know, gain weight, whatever the case may be, she tells me to tone it down, because I believe that she has seen that level of, unsafeness with the eating. Um, so when I lose weight, it's not necessarily a problem with other people. Even in my church, like, people keep saying, you lost so much weight, Ramon, you're looking good. And in my mind, I'm like, well, yeah, I'm doing things to harm myself. And of course I can't say that, but, and then when they focus on my body, it just becomes too much for me to handle.
So let's shift as we close out. Let's shift to prevention. How can we help someone like you? Because here's the deal. There are people watching now, and those who are going to do the replay, that they're going to send it to people that they know, or they suspect, or they didn't even suspect before, and now they're thinking, wait a minute. And here's the thing that I always say to people. You meet people where they're at. You don't try to tell them how you want to help them, right? So you being on the hot seat today is helping us to know how to help somebody who is in that same situation, right? I was in that situation. I had nobody to help me. I had absolutely nobody to help me. And frankly, the only thing that brought me out of that, not plunging myself, were the two boys that I had. If I didn't have children, you probably will have my picture in your house right now, somebody telling you this was Big Mama. We're Big Mama in 1996. But the only thing that got me off of that ledge was because I knew I had these two boys that I had to care for, and I could not imagine anybody else caring for them. And that was what got me off of it. Now, that didn't end the thinking, because it was
Right.
right after that too that I went out, and when I woke up 6 months later, I was in a chair rocking like this. 6 months later, they kept me in the house, praying all over me, and I was like this, rocking. And when I remember coming off out of it, asking for my two boys, they were the ones, they were my why for coming off of that ledge.
Mm.
So for people who don't have that kind of whys, right? For millennials like yourself, Gen Zs who are out there, Alpha, right, who are out there, they don't have kids, they keep themselves. How can we help? How can we help you, Raman? I want to know, as Big Mommy, how can I help you? Because now you've released some things into my spirit today that I did not know. So now, if I start checking you out, if I get a ticket and say, come over and come stay with Big Mama for a minute, don't be shocked. Don't be shocked, because now I know, for me, this is why I wanted you to be part of the mental health. This is why, because I felt like your self-esteem needed a boost.
Yes,
I felt like, in our family, you have others that are writing articles, that are doing this, that are doing that, and I watch you quietly. I just watch you. And I said, okay, if I have to, if this is what I have to do and get you involved so that you and I can start doing mental health stuff, then that's what we're going to do. So how can I help you, Raman? How can people, because as they watch you tell me how I can help you, they can take from that too and use it and apply it in their own family. So how can I help you?
So I think, that question, I've been asked that by my mother as well, like, how can I help? She would ask me, how can I help you? And sometimes I really don't know the answer. And it's okay to not know how to help somebody. And it's really important to validate their experience.
That's right.
Because if you haven't lived it, then you can't understand. And it's okay to not understand and to be honest about that. I don't understand this, but I see you, and you're so brave and strong for dealing with this. As a crisis counselor, I have, it's in our protocol to show empathy. And part of showing empathy is realizing how hard it is for that person to be walking every day in their shoes. So I think those two things, like knowing or validating and just loving people, loving them, loving on them, just reminding them every single day or every other day that you love them and that your life is important to them, or their life is important to them or to you. And then finally, just give them examples of how they've impacted your life. Because sometimes we really don't see, the impact that we have on people's lives. We don't see the good that we do. And if we can be reminded of that, then that can keep us going.
Wow. The National Institute for Mental Health suggests the following. So I just want to quickly go over those.
Mm-hmm.
And a few of the things that they said is asking people if they are thinking about suicide. Are they okay? Because we live in a society now where people are just, it's me, myself, and I. Everybody is just, there's just so much selfishness, self-centeredness out there. that it's important that we take the time out to say, are you okay? Are you okay? Asking them and asking them, are you thinking about it? Are you okay? Keeping them safe, right? Keeping them safe by removing any means of committing suicide,
Yes.
such as knives, anything that they could use, right? The 24-year-old that I was talking about earlier, that kid went out and bought some medication, bought some drugs, and overdosed on it. And that was the end.
Mm.
So listening, like you said, to people. Half the time we talk too much and we don't listen.
Exactly.
We talk too much. We pretend to be praying too much because, frankly, if we were doing that kind of prayer, we should know the real deal. So that tells me that your prayer is probably off yourself, because if you were praying for that person, then you will really know, okay, they're in trouble.
Mm.
You won't flip the script on them and say they're the ones now praying. You're the one who is in the spirit. You're the one who is supposed to know that, okay, he might be faking it because he doesn't want to hurt you, because he's really hurt.
Yes, please.
Encouraging people to call helpline. If you need help, call helpline. We're going to talk about 911. We're going to talk about other things. Following up too, because frankly, some people, we say, are you okay? Before they say yeah, before they even say why, we've gone. Because we really didn't mean to say, are you okay? Because we really don't want to hear the answer.
Yes, please.
We don't want to hear the answer. So when you take the time to say, are you okay? Then take the time to also listen to the response.
Mm.
And when you listen to the response, then take the time to absorb that response. And then still go back again and say, are you okay?
Mm.
And just like Rahman says, we might not always have all the answers, but it goes a long way when we are compassionate about things. When somebody, right, Maya Angelou says, when people show you who they are, believe them. Well, it also works for this too, that when people tell you they're in trouble, believe them.
Mm.
Believe them. They're not trying to seek any kind of whatever. Believe them when they say they're in trouble. When their eyes say they're in trouble, even what their mouth cannot say, believe it.
Mm.
When their mannerisms show you that they're in trouble, they don't wait for them to say something. Don't say, well, if you knew we're in trouble, why didn't you say something? No. Perhaps they don't want to hurt you.
Mm.
So if their mannerisms show that they're in trouble, believe it.
Yes.
Follow up on people. There's 911, there's local emergency. In different states, you have what you call the crisis centers. Listen to people without judgment, everybody, without judgment. So if you or somebody out there knows someone who has thoughts of suicide, who has mental illness, how about pointing them to National Suicide Prevention Lifeline? It is 24 hours a day, y'all. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 24 hours a day. You have something to add to it.
I should mention that there's nothing wrong with medicine. There's nothing wrong with seeking medical help.
Thank you for saying that.
In my culture, it's popular to believe that mental illness is always the devil,
Right.
and that belief is also in the United States in some sects of Christianity, because we just don't know how to deal with mental illness. So I would say that there's nothing wrong with seeking medical help or going to treatment if you need to. Just remember that your story doesn't end here, that you are so important and that your life is going to be something that people will look on and say, wow, God is good.
That's right. That's right. Well, you know, I was so enthralled by your story that I forgot that even I myself I'm a I'm a practitioner. I forgot to even mention medication. Because your story is so captivating that I didn't even bother to talk about treatment, right? So we do have treatment. There's treatment, there's medication management, there's also therapy. I do believe in both. I believe in the power and the strength that you have in both, right? Yes, there's Christian counseling, and there's also the other kinds of therapy too that you need, right? One of it is called cognitive behavioral health, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, where it takes your irrational thinking and turns it to rational thinking. I don't feel good. Yeah, well, gives you tools to let you know that you're great, you know, things like that. And of course, medication. Look, where I live right now, I do medication, but I do it with, you know, with prayers too. Praying and saying every time I get up here to help somebody, I say, God, use me through this medication, because frankly, if it wasn't God, the devil didn't create the medication. God gave people the ability to be able to create those medications. And yes, those medications are working. They are working for a lot of people. So just as therapy, I've seen people where psychologists actually direct them to me and say, look, I've been in therapy with this person for 2 years. Give her some medication and send her right back my way, because I can't deal. I've seen it happen over and over again, where psychologists actually come and say to me, okay, and Christian psychologists, they come and say to me, you know what, okay, we've done the therapy thing with this person for 3 years now. Yeah. Can you just put him or put her on medication and send her back my way? And when they go back right that person's way, now they're listening better. Now they're focused more on the tools. They can do what they need to do without getting all over the place. So medication has its place, prayer has its place, therapy has its place. And strength is using every resources. This is where our strength lies, when we can use all the resources and not throw one out and say, oh, this one, you can't use this. But when we're able to use all of the resources to bring about recovery, because that's what we're talking about here, recovery, going from trauma to recovery. So we reduce risk by understanding that medication has its place, therapy has its place, Christian counseling has its place.
Yes.
Our family have their place. So we cannot just throw a kid and put the kid in therapy, which is something that I've seen happen. Take the kid, drop the kid up at the door, and the mother doesn't even believe in the therapy. The mother doesn't even believe in the medication, but then they will drop the kid at the door and then turn around as if you're supposed to do something, work a magic on their kid. So families play a huge role in bringing this person from trauma to recovery. Because frankly, people that have mental illness, you know, I don't think there's one that has not been through one kind of trauma or the other. Now, they might forget, some of them might have forgotten some trauma, because it's way buried deep down, but trauma is always a part of it. So I'm going to let you close. I'm going to let you close. What is your closing arguments? Because you've messed me up today. You've messed me up today, but I'm glad it's a good kind of mess up, because I need to wake up and I need to, it makes me feel that I will be spending enough time with you and all of you all. That this is really a wake-up call for me. So, Abdul-Ramman, thank you that you've given me this wake-up call. Because I tell you, the last time I had the meeting with all of you, that was the best time I had in my life. And I'm still talking about it, telling everybody that I don't know about you all. I had a great time with my boys. I had a great time with my girls. I had a great time. And I'm going to commit to making sure that we all come together like that. If the old folks don't want to be a part of it, I'm enjoying it. So I don't mind having you all to myself. I don't mind having you all to myself. But you've really given me a standard now. You've given me a mandate now. Because what if I lost you? Then what? Then what? This is not the kind of story I want to hear. I'm glad I'm hearing it now so that I can make a change. I can make a difference. Because what if? And, and I'm going to talk to your mom too, because I'm like, God, what if? And many of you who are parents watching me today, what if? What if in your home right now as you're watching me, what if? Hey, Edith, what if? We have millennials that are dying in scores around us. We have people who are not even millennials, 10-year-old dying in scores around us. And we old folks, we're too busy with blue and green and white and yellow, who is who is not. That's what we're focused on. And the people, the gifts that God has given us are dying from underneath us, and we're busy on the kind of flag that we're waving around. Decisions that we should be making now need to be decisions that would help the generations to come, not hurt them, not harm them, not lie to them. We have people out there that won't tell the truth, don't know how to tell the truth if it hit them right up in their noses. Don't know how to tell the truth. So thank you, Ramman, for telling your truth today. Thank you for sharing, because I'm telling you, the days of mental health and stigma is over.
Amen.
It's over.
Yes.
If you don't like what you hear, get off my stage. Then you don't need to belong. You don't belong on my platform anyway. Go find your own. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for opening your heart. For those of you who are watching this right now, please watch the replay. You will not regret it. Let me say it again. You will not regret watching this. And as you watch it, can you throw a watch party on your Facebook? Throw a watch party on it. Invite other people to watch this. Send it around. There are people out there that don't even have much to say, and yet the minute we see their faces, we take their story and we turn it viral. We turn it viral. We don't even know them. Don't even have a flicker of what they could do. Half the time they're not even doing anything that makes sense, but we turn them into a viral. And then when something like this comes around, that's when That's why we're not interested, you know, because it's got to be somebody that we've seen on TV or somebody that we've seen elsewhere. This will save somebody's life. This will save somebody's life. You hear me? This will save somebody's life. Share it. Share it. Thank you, Edith. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. If you are watching and you have questions about mental health, suicide prevention, if you have questions about Ramman's story, because I tell you, I have been publishing people for years. I'm a published author myself. I have turned people into a best-selling author. Ramman, you are a best-selling author. I want you to know that's a promise from me today. That your story will become a best-selling. That's a promise. That's a promise from Big Mommy today. Because if I can do it for other people, that's a promise. I want you to hear that clearly today. That is a promise. So you and I, we got work to do. We're going to speak behind the scenes because there's a book that I started already. So I want to put you in that book. And then the next one will now be Ramman on standing on his own. Yes, Dr. E. Dr. E says, God will waste nothing in your life, young man. Absolutely not. Can you all just pray over him for me, please? Can you pray over him for me, please? Thank you, Razak, for coming. Thank you. Can you pray over him for me, please? Thank you, Dr. E. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm introducing to you the next best-selling author from the Princess of Suburbia. What you all need to look at him now, because that's my next best-selling author. That's my next best-selling author, because that story needs to be heard. That story needs to be heard. Does anybody have questions for Ramman, please, before we close? Does anybody have questions? If you have any words of encouragement for him, please throw it there. Thank you. The first step is to accept and not remain in denial. Letting go of the stigma frees everybody.
Yes.
Says, thank you, Jesus. God is faithful and he will do what he says he will do.
Yes.
Amen. Thank you all. Thank you. As you watch this in replay, I want you to leave messages for Ramman. I want you to leave prayers for him. I want you to leave encouragement for him. He just told us how we can help him and help people like him. Encourage them. Encourage them. So if you are watching their way of replay, can you encourage him? Because I know what to do. The gifting that God has given me is writing and mental health. That's the gifting. And a lot of my nieces and nephews now, they're swimming in writing too now. Everybody is swimming in writing. I have to say they take that from me. Aha. I would like to say that. Of course, if Grandpa heard that, Grandpa would say, now, that's from him. That's what Grandpa would say that. So, we got work to do, Raman.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. As a matter of fact, there's a book I'm writing right now. I'm talking about when masquerades parade like leaders.
Mm.
When masquerades parade like leaders, chaos takes place in the land.
Yes.
So part of the chaos is mental illness that we're not taking care of right now.
That's right.
There's a lot of, we're talking about all kind of pandemics right now, but nobody's mentioning the biggest one that is yet to rock our world right now, that is actually rocking our world right now. But because you don't see it, right? See no evil, hear no evil. So we're pretending that the only pandemic that we have is what? Those two, the coronavirus and the racism. But the third one is a huge one that is going to, you have leaders that are showing and saying, go back to work, and then they say, oh, we gonna work for you. We're starting this program. We're starting that program. Where do dead people go to work? The next time you find a dead person at work, you might want to let me know. So I can go take the picture of that dead person going walking straight back to work. Because frankly, you have people right now, people that are my patients right now, that are so afraid to go back to work. They are already dealing. They are already severely mentally ill. They don't need us to add more to their rubbish that they're going through right now. They go through rubbish. Just listening to a bunch of us who call ourselves experts and leaders, half-baked. So thank you all so much. Thank you very much for being a part of this. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lord. Thank you very much for praying over Rahman. Thank you very much for coming. It's not about me, but it's about his story today. If you are just coming in, please watch the replay, share it with everybody. Will you just make that choice and decision that you're going to make this, turn this viral, and tell 2 or 3 people, have you watched Prince Abdul-Ramman Shitu's life story? Have you watched it? If you have not watched it, here you go. Here's the link. Hurry up and watch it. Would you commit to doing that? Would you commit to doing that today? Because frankly, it might just be your family that you're about to save. So until next time, be inspired, be motivated, be of sentimental value. Understand that you are the hero in your life story. Do not allow anybody else to write your story. Know that God is the ultimate master planner of your life, but you too also have a role to play in it. And that's what we're trying to teach you today, that you have a role. Your family has a role. The society that you're in has a role. And everybody has a role to play. If we're saying that we're going to deal with mental illness, we all have a role to play in it. So thank you so much. Rahman, you want to say your last?
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on today. I know that my story will touch at least one person, and I'm grateful that you allowed me to come on. I just want to say that family is important. Just don't neglect spending time with your loved ones, because you never know where they are mentally. And you could save your child, you could save your brother, you could save your sister. And healing is a teamwork thing. You have to work together to heal. And I'm sure that there's a lot of healing that has to be done between me and my mother, and even me and you right now, because
That's
even
right.
now. So, just work. Let's just work together and heal.
Thank you so much. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you. Hold on, Raman. Don't go anywhere yet.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. We appreciate you. Thank you for coming. Please do share, 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 share.